This will be a spoiler discussion only of Midsommar. Just got the DVD today, digital release, Blu-ray, and I've heard about all of the hidden little images and things in this movie. I'm not going to definitely do the most exhaustive version ever, but I'm going to try to see what little things we can find and do my own version of it. Hopefully you guys find it fun, and I would love to hear comments about the things you find or things that I might have missed. Let's take a look at Midsommar and see what we can find. Okay, I'm going to warn everybody again. As I mentioned the first time, we will definitely be getting into spoiler territory throughout this video. If you do not want to have Midsommar spoiled, then I would advise you go ahead and move along, because this is a spoiler episode. I picked out a variety of stills from the movie as I was watching it, pretty much from beginning to end, picking out things that I thought were interesting that you may not have heard of, as well as maybe a few little things that I thought were interesting and might be details, and they might just be me imagining it, but we'll see. The first image you see in the movie, a lot of people have mentioned this, and it's really cool, and that is the opening panels. They seem to be painted on wood panels, and they open up like a curtain, basically entering you into the world of Midsommar. And at first glance, you might just look at it and say, oh, this is sort of an old-timey print on wood or something, and not notice what it is. But if you go back to it after you watch the movie, there are some really obvious things that are happening in this. And that is, namely, the whole story is told to you in the very first image of the movie. And as you go from left to right, you'll see there are the figures of the parents and the sister, and they are, of course, linked up with hoses to death. And then as you go to the next panel, you see what appears to be Pele up above, drawing a picture, and you've got Christian and Dany in the city, and she's unhappy, of course. Once again, this will get to some other things, and that is, how much effect did Pele have on this? Very early on, you definitely know that he has chosen her, or at least singled her out as the possible new May Queen. But there is some question about whether or not he maybe had anything to do with her mother, father, and sister dying. Now that's kind of a big conspiracy theory, but something to think about. As you go to the third panel, there you have all the friends, and they're all walking through the forest. You can see the flowers in the pathway, which leads to Midsommar, which is the next panel. And of course, there you see them entering the gates of Midsommar, and you see all the people there at the Horga, and you see them offering in like a big meal or whatever. You see the bear at the bottom, of course. And then as you go to the final one, you've got the May Queen, you have death up there at the top, but you also have the sun and rebirth. So of course, death and rebirth. And that's kind of the whole path. And if you look at it from left to right really quickly, it goes from darkness to light. You hear that bell in the background? Our dog. It goes from darkness to light. The next shot is from very early in the film. It's kind of an interesting one to see. Really quickly, as we're passing through the house, you see her parents sleeping. This is obviously before they've been killed. And you notice that there's a picture of Dany in the background, and they have flowers all above and around her head. Essentially, it's foreshadowing exactly how she would look as the May Queen later in the movie. So that was kind of an interesting little touch they put in there. The next one, of course, is her sister. This is mostly just kind of a reference pic to see exactly how her sister is posed, because you're going to see this image of her sister 2 more times in the movie, which is kind of interesting, kind of cool. Of course, it's a very haunting image, and as it zooms in, you get to see all the messages that have never been read that Dany has been sending as the night goes on. Now, this is one of many paintings on the wall in Dany's apartment. I didn't really even try to research and go through all of them.
because throughout this movie there's artwork behind them, and you could probably just do a whole video just on the artwork. I'm sure you could find all kinds of hidden stuff in there. This one's the most obvious, but also the most cool in that, it shows a little girl, what looks to be like a little girl, and a bear. And of course, that's pretty symbolic, obviously, of Dany and Christian's relationship. And this is one of the ones that many people noticed, even the first time watching it. When it got to the end, they're like, oh, yeah, I remember that picture of the bear and the little girl. So earlier on, you get the party. And this is the first scene. This is not the first scene, but the party is the first scene after the discovery of her parents dead, and time has passed. And she goes to this party with Christian, and it kind of starts out very muffled. She can barely hear what's going on. She's obviously in a daze. She's still grieving and just messed up. And out of the haze and the muffled sounds around her, she hears them talking about going to Midsommar. And she kind of snaps out of it and understands all of a sudden that Christian is going to Midsommar too. And then there's a quick shot of her realizing what's happening, and instead of everyone else just looking around, Pele is looking right at her. So there's this early indication that Pele has a focus on her and how she is aware of this, and he probably secretly is trying to figure out how to get her to go to it. Also, I noticed in the party scene, you could see it, and you can also see it here. Behind them, on top of the refrigerator, is a painting or a picture of the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. I find it kind of interesting because also in that same apartment, later in a scene, you see a stuffed little scarecrow kind of figurine or stuffed animal, but it's a scarecrow, up on the shelf. And I thought these are both maybe foreshadowing how all the bodies that they have already prepared and they put into the kind of the sacrificial temple or whatever it's called at the end of the movie are all kind of done like scarecrows. They all pretty much seem to have been skinned, or their skins are just stuffed with like straw. Probably partly still burned, but probably it's kind of like their effigies, essentially, of real people. I think also in the scene in the background there's supposed to be some runes, but I couldn't quite make it out in my copy. Then as they are driving to the location, in the field off to the left of the car, you see some shapes that appear to be more than just random in the field there. I'm not sure if this is just kind of more symbols of how all around in the natural surroundings there's this kind of ancient symbology all throughout the land and the people. So it's kind of giving you a feel. This is right before everything goes upside down, which obviously is kind of giving you the feel that like, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore, which also Wizard of Oz. So an interesting little relate there. Of course, this is the first vision that Dany gets of her sister. Actually, there's one other vision she has too, but I didn't put that one in here. But this is when she is, the first time she's on the mushrooms, and she's having her bad trip, basically. She runs into the little shack, and then of course she has a vision behind her of her sister with the hose taped to her mouth. Once again, this is not really subliminal, it's just almost like a jump cut to show us, that she's still haunted by this. The next two panels show what a lot of people had a hard time interpreting at first, but looking back on it is essentially the recipe for the love potion or the love spell. And I didn't put the entire panels because part of it is not acceptable for YouTube, but it's really great because it's planting the seeds of all the steps that you see later on. And if you go back and look at it, like all those steps do appear on this little these panels here. They show you exactly what happens. So if you go back and see it a second time, you'll see like, oh my gosh, she did everything that happens here to get Christian under the spell. Dany wakes up in the middle of the night one night, and you see her bedspread or her blanket there. It isn't exactly a replica, but it very, very, very much reminds you of the carpet in The Shining. Don't think this is an accident, because Ari Aster definitely seems to have an appreciation of Kubrick. Another scene in here early on, the very first time you see all of the guys out for dinner or bar, whatever that is. They're all sitting around this table, and it starts in zoomed in on them and pulls back slowly. And that's got to be a very similar shot to what you see at the very beginning of A Clockwork Orange, where all the droogs are sitting around and it pulls back from them to show the setting that they're at. But as Christian is being served the pie, which obviously has been treated for the spell, as well as his drink, if you look, knowing that this is happening, you can look at the line of drinks in the picture, and his drink is a different color. And they focus in on this a couple times to really let you notice, if you want to notice, or if you're watching it a second time, to see that his drink is definitely a different color and a different shade than everyone else's, because obviously it's been tainted as part of the spell. In the actual temple where they keep the book, there's always this window or mirror in the background, and it's always closed. And you see this in several different shots. You see it in the love pregnancy ceremony. You see it early on when he's discussing the book with the mentor, the elder. But when he goes in late at night, the window is open, and it zooms in on that window to show him the reflection as the friend comes in, or the body, the skin-wearing bad guy, I guess. It zooms in on this black mirror or window or one-way glass. I don't think it's ever really answered exactly what this window or mirror is, and it is really curious, and I kind of wonder how that plays into their mythology. And this I love. So obviously you're shown this woodcut or whatever it's supposed to be, lithograph of the bear burning, and that's a obvious indication of what's to come. If you look around it, you also see there's herbs and mushrooms and a naked woman. So all this stuff obviously is symbolic of what's going to happen to Christian. And it's great because you see this, and then you look at the next shot, and it's him, and he's been waiting to go talk to the elder woman, and they've placed him in a chair, so he's basically staring right at that picture. So essentially his future is being shown to him, and he doesn't even know it. And then a lot of people have noted this, and this, I looked and looked and looked through all of the greenery in the background, and I looked for more hidden ones, but this is the only one I could find, and this is the one that other people have found as well. And this is when she's carried high up, and she's being carried as the new May Queen. Behind her, you can see the image in the greenery on the far upper left of her sister's face with the hose kind of going down from it, and it's going down in the shape of the trees there. Very haunting and very cool. So hopefully you found a few cool, interesting things here. I know that I did, and I think every time we watch this movie, I'll find a few more things. Very, very interesting and cool movie. Anyway, I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks and what everyone else found. And if you found something cool that I didn't catch here, or you wanted to add to it, please put them in the comments. Thanks.